guys and gals. Welcome back to the Outlap podcast. How are we doing?
Doing
We're
good.
doing great, doing great. As you can hear, we have a new voice on the podcast. Mike is out. Mike is at a conference today, and he's called in a hot and ready arm off the bench. She's been warming up for a while, got some hot takes. LeAnn, would love to have you introduce yourself, and then I got a couple questions for you as well.
Okay. I was really hoping to introduce myself as Michael Scott, but next time. Yeah, next time. See if anyone even noticed if I wasn't Michael Scott. So, So LeAnn, a friend in Denver here, got into F1 similar as everyone else in America, Drive to Survive, probably, 3 to 4 years ago, and hit the ground running ever since.
I love it. So a couple questions for you. Who do you pull for, first of all?
Starting with Drive to Survive, you're kind of like feeling the teams out. Who do you want to root for? You have to buy in. And didn't want to do the Red Bull bandwagon. Couldn't do the Mercedes bandwagon. So I was like, well, we'll do Ferrari. It's a history program. Be a good team to jump in with. And my gosh, they are heartbreakers. It's horrible. So slightly regretting that decision. And also their merch is dog shit. So
I'm so glad you called that out. We haven't talked about that enough. LeAnn, I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan. Love Mercedes, but like mostly just pull for Lewis. And I've tried to get Mercedes and Ferrari merch like for the past few years, and it's disgraceful. Like
it's horrible.
No person would wear that. Like I don't, especially it's not very American either. Like listen,
it's
neither
very
is
like
F1.
50-year-old midlife crisis Italian dad. And if I would have known, I would have pulled for McLaren. They have the cutest
I'm
stuff.
not
You can
gonna
go to
lie
Hollister
to
and get
you.
some McLaren gear. Like,
In this specifically, I feel like Zach Brown. I really feel like this is the Zach Brown fit. It's just the little fluffy coat to cover up everything, so you just can't quite see.
the Zach Brown special right there.
Absolutely. Okay, so pulling for Ferrari, I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a tough one to pull for. They'll come around. I got good faith.
That's what people keep saying. Yeah, we'll see.
I think so. So how do you watch races? What's your when you turn on the race? What's your situation?
Yeah, so YouTube TV. If it's after midnight, I'm watching it the next day. But I'll stay up for a midnight race. But after that, you'll catch me the next day. So
What about early races?
I'll get up. I'll get up early for races. Hell yeah.
I think 5 a.m. is my cutoff. I can't get up before then, and even 6 a.m. I'm like watching it with one eye open.
Yeah.
I stayed up for everything this weekend, but the race definitely watched about the good first half, slept through 25%, and then got the last 25%.
Yeah, the middle portion. You don't need to see the middle portion.
We'll get into it, but the race, unfortunately, the main race was a little bit of a snooze fest.
Yeah.
It was. Okay, last question for you before we quit grilling you. What are your other car affinities? What kind of other racing or cars are you into, if any? And if not, that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely zero. No other car affinities. It's purely the drama of F1. I'm sure there's more drama elsewhere, but I don't want to hear about it. F1 only.
The other drama, especially like in the American series, is very like weird, spoiled redneck drama. It's not very fun. So F1 is by far the best. But awesome.
I like that rich boy drama. That's what I really want. Just the rich boy drama.
There you go. I love it. Well, great to have you on. And it was definitely a race this weekend. I wouldn't say the most exciting race in the world, but I really do like the track. China's really cool. It's got some neat corners. I really love. There's a couple corners that you don't see anywhere else in F1. That turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 complex is really cool, and it ended up being a neat quality track with some good overtakes. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk a little bit about the race, Nick. What do you think?
Yeah, we can dive in. I mean, obviously we have to start with the sprint. Lewis kind of snatched it out of nowhere, got pole during sprint quali. And then, into the sprint race. So Lewis and Max side by side, like 2021 all over again. Lewis covered off. I mean, he knows what to do. He got a good start and covered off Max right away, and kind of thwarted that attempt immediately, which was really good to see. I think we've seen a lot too much of Max getting to do whatever the hell he wants and running away into the lead the last few years. So it's good to see him being able to be shut down and wasn't able to really do much after that. Got to call out my guy Lando. Made a mistake on turn one, dropped a wheel on the outside, ended up losing 3 places out of that. So didn't have a particularly great qualifying to start off with. Wasn't able to put in his final push lap. Led to him starting in about 6th. That mistake dropped him down to 9th. And really just struggled all race from there. Was eventually able to get in. And so for those that don't know, sprint is the top 8 get points, going from 8 points for first place down to 1 point for 8th place. He was able to sneak into the points by the end and be the last points getter, but really struggled overall. Also wanted to call out George's dive bomb on Leclerc. It was an absolute send into the hairpin and just made it stick. And I don't even, it almost felt like one of those moves where he's like, I'm either going to hit him or I got to go for it. And he made it stick. So that was a really, really good move. Lawson started all the way at the back. Go ahead. Yeah.
George has had a sneaky great start to the year. He looked awesome, made that strategy call in the first week, and then had some really great moves and just like really solid driving this week. But I'm glad you called that one out because that one was like jump out of the seat kind of move. It was a Max trying to win his first championship move. And it was really fun to see.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot harder with these cars to pull off just because they're a lot bigger and heavier. And when you see a lot of those late breaking dive bombs of old historic F1, it's with a lot lighter cars that are a lot more nimble. So I think that was a really impressive move, and it was the overtake, one of the overtakes of the year. Definitely, was up there, but there was actually, overall there wasn't great racing, but there was a lot of great moves this weekend. So I am a Lawson guy. It's been an unfortunate start to the season. He tried to fight back, only got up to 15th. And he's, there's already rumors swirling around his head that there's a possible switch coming. And, me being a supporter of the dude, it's like, it's not justified. But it could be the best thing possible if he's able to land a seat in Racing Bulls. There's also rumors that they're going to bring in not Bortoletto, Colapinto in from Alpine right now. He's a reserve driver for Alpine to come and drive in that other. So there's a chance he doesn't even get a seat in the Racing Bulls. So obviously a horrific start. Didn't think it could get much worse, and he found a way to make it worse and only got up to 15th. Across the sprint race, I really thought there was really good mid-pack fighting, though, overall. They were really tight, and there was a lot of moves being made with those mid-pack drivers, those 10 to 16. There was about 6 cars in one camera shot, and they're fighting all through. Gasly
these rookies are so thirsty. They're like, I'm not getting any points, but I'm about to show you what I can do. Like that, the rookie jitters for sure. That mid-pack, they're fighting so hard.
And we obviously shat on the rookies a little bit last week, but deservingly so. This week we need to give them their praise because they had a lot better showing across the board. Yeah.
Not a single rookie spin out that I saw.
Had one Bortoletto in the race on lap 1. He did have a little Spinalla. So finishing out the sprint race though, that great mid-pack fighting. Max actually was trying to put some pressure on Lewis up front, but pushed a bit too hard and burnt his tires up, which then led to about 5 laps later, Piastri just kind of walked by him. And Lewis, brought it home to victory. First time a victory in Ferrari red. Was a pretty easy drive other than the little bit of pressure he got from Max, and covering him off in turn 1. Finishing order was Lewis, Oscar, Max, Russell, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Antonelli, your guy, and my guy Lando, rounding out the points. So overall, I thought the sprint was a good race. What did you guys think?
Yeah, a couple things on the sprint race. I'm starting to really grow to like sprints, especially early in the season. I feel like it's a really good measure because the drivers don't really have any strategy to account for other than just like tire wear. It's a really good measure of where cars are, and like to your point earlier, like the whole field was pretty tight. Like there wasn't for the first 12, 13 laps of the sprint race, there weren't that many gaps. They were, a second and a half between all the cars, and just kind of showing what a nice end to the season this is going to be. I think going to be a lot of fighting for everything. The other thing I noticed is there's just a classic Lewis drive. Didn't do too much, held it together, managed his tires really well, and ended up, it was kind of close between him and Max for a little while, but he wasn't trying too hard. He wasn't doing too much, and just kept his tires the whole time under him while everybody else was struggling. Lewis seemed to be doing pretty well, and it was good to see him bring one home. He needed it to start off the Ferrari career for sure, especially after how bad the Mercedes was last year.
Yeah, I think this is the best thing that could have happened to Lewis and Ferrari, is to come out first sprint of the season, put a win on the board, and just say, where are the haters now? Because I think a lot of people were questioning, Lewis is old, he's going to Ferrari, this is a retirement move. And yeah, Lewis said no. And that post-race interview, he was talking directly to everyone who ever doubted him. You could tell.
K1 to P1, baby. It was fun to see.
Yeah, and I think that didn't help any of the doubter talks, like the little bit of friction you felt between him and his race engineer. The absolute hilarious response that Leclerc got from his race engineer. He's like, my seat is wet from the water. He's like, yes, it must be the water. And, I think it's good for the sport, right? Whether he wins an actual race or wins a sprint race, like Lewis Hamilton winning in Ferrari Red is good for the sport. That is why it made such big headlines with him the first time. And also this is a bit of a tangent, but you guys know how Lewis used to show up in the paddock with a different, absolutely ridiculous outfit every week. He shows up in Ferrari kit now. So that merch that you're saying is dog shit, Lewis Hamilton's being forced to show up every race weekend in fine,
for $100 million I'll do it too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And what I was telling the guys is, I think it really comes down to they're charging a lot more for their sponsors to be on their car. So therefore, that comes with the commitment of your biggest driver is going to be wearing my logo at all times. So, I think that also shows the level of respect that Lewis has for Ferrari, that he was willing to kind of change what was a big piece of his personality and his ability to express himself, week on week, to be able to be like, all right, I'm going to be the team guy. I'm actually going to show up in Ferrari Red. I know everyone knows it's killing him on the inside, but he's just like, all right, Enzo, you better give me your car.
I mean, Mercedes is a team, but Ferrari is a country. I think he started to realize oh, there's a country that wants me to wear this. And I think he's bought in a little bit to that as well.
He did. Yeah. I remember last year, first of all, he's a fashion icon. I'm obsessed with Lewis. I think he's the best. And I remember when he signed with Ferrari last year, he wore this really big red puff coat with no shirt and red pants after he signed. So I think he popped off a little bit at the end of the season last year to account for that. But that's a good call out. I hadn't thought about that. And I don't have social media and stuff, so I don't get to see his fits on a daily basis anymore. But
yeah, he's putting the fits on the gram.
I specifically follow a photographer, Kim Illman, who's an Australian guy that's gone to every race since 2017, and ended up meeting up with him in Silverstone. He does meetups at races. He's a really nice guy, and he'll document what Lewis wears, and he makes these little recap videos that are really interesting, that provide a behind the scenes look of the paddock. And he's the one that really called it out to me. He was like, yeah, Lewis isn't showing up in his crazy outfits anymore. Shall we move on? I'm going to quickly brush over quali with a few standouts. Qualifying order was Piastri, Russell, Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc. Wanted to call out Hadjar as well. So Hadjar out qualifying his teammate. Another F1 content creator, FP1 Will, called him Kryzik Hadjar, and I lost my shit, and that will unfortunately forever be how we reference him on this podcast until he starts legit popping off. But Kryzik was, out qualified Yuki this week, and really did a good job. I think also fair to call out Russell's lap Russell put in a really, really good lap to split the McLarens.
Mm-hmm.
Lando again was unable to get a good lap right at the drop, and Oscar was able to find like 4 or 5 tenths in the hairpin alone. So he had a really good
The
qualifying
hairpin of his
performance as well.
life, he said.
That's what he said.
That
Yeah.
last sector was so crazy. Like he put in 2 yellows, and like the shot of him coming around that last corner, like absolutely on the rails, was awesome. He put in that last sector was magic. That was great.
Yeah. Um, but qualifying definitely didn't go the same way for the Ferraris. They actually ended up having pretty good race pace, and we'll get more into that. But I think they really nailed the setup when it came to the sprint race. They were still able to manage their tires well during the race, but all the other teams made changes because they were able to in between the sprint race and qualifying, and really I think close that gap.
Nick, you can probably speak more to this, but I feel like Ferrari's biggest enemy is they will have a great setup one week and they'll just never have a good setup again. Like they are so inconsistent in these car setups that one race is perfect on the same track. Like sprint was perfect. And then on the exact same track, 24 hours later, like they just have no consistency, I feel like.
I think that so going back to the era of Mattia Binotto and when like they were really just making fools of themselves, I think there's a little bit of like layover of that kind of still lingering. They've definitely gotten a lot better. I don't think the other thing is that I don't think has been working in their favor is they do have a very like condition sensitive car. Whereas like like Red Bull over the last 4 or 5 years, it doesn't matter what conditions they're in, they're going to be able to perform. And that's sometimes what is hard to see on TV is how much different those conditions are like from session to session.
Like 20 degrees hotter and we're flying.
Even just being like wind sensitive because these cars are so focused on aerodynamics, like the wind can be really a big thing. And like right now, McLaren is kind of the car this year where it's like it feels like in any condition they're going to be there or thereabouts. But that's where we're seeing there's going to be sometimes the car is better for certain tracks or worse than others. But session to session, it's really just like they might have it set up thinking for these conditions, and if those conditions change, they're not able to light up the tires, and then all of a sudden they're scrambling and have absolutely no pace. So especially too like over the last few years they haven't had the best car, which I think has led them down probably more rabbit holes as well. You're going to see less and less of that as they get a better car. So I think you don't have to worry about Fred Vasseur being the same guy of being a kind of a fool at the top. Not that Mattia Binotto was a fool at the top, but like they made that change and immediately it was a better move. Unfortunately, the same way it was like for Haas and Gunther Steiner. Mm-hmm. They got rid of Gunther Steiner and they immediately had like a significantly better season. And so it's hard to say where that comes from, but they've had their question marks around their strategy, around their like team makeup, and I think we're seeing a little bit of a hangover of that. And then the other side is just like they have a very sensitive car. And when you're not on top, you're going to be trying a ton of different things, trying to find that pace.
Yeah, it just seems like a little bit of analysis paralysis. Like we know they have all the data, and they're just struggle with
the old
committing
joke
to
was
something.
Plan Z, Charles. What do we think? Plan AA. We've gone through the whole alphabet. What do we think of AA?
I think that's German. That sounds like a German accent. The other thing I wanted to call out with Quali, you mentioned it already, but Hadjar, man, like I'm really stoked for him. He had such a great weekend, and he is one of the most talented rookies for sure, and just like really glad that he got it under him this weekend and put together a good weekend. It was great to see. Racing Bulls altogether looked pretty good, but Hadjar especially, like it just that was heartbreaking to see him last week really go through it, and he stuck his nose in it this weekend and really performed well.
Yeah, he needed that,
especially after getting like Helmut Marko was harsh on him. Said it was embarrassing him kind of having his head down walking back to paddock, which again, one of the few times I kind of do align slightly with Helmut Marko. You got to be a little bit of an adult in that situation. You feel for him, but at the same time, like I kind of get where Marco's coming from. Of like, okay, have your moment in the car, but it's like once you get out of the car, you got to kind of like compose yourself and realize like you're not just representing you in that moment and the mistake you made. It's all the rest of the team and everybody around you. So was definitely good, and I think is going to be really good for his confidence as a rookie. Not even being able to participate in last week's race and crashing it on that. So moving into the race, we'll just take this kind of piece by piece, but really good start from Oscar. George also got a really good start, though. Tried to make a move up the inside, ended up kind of getting closed off, which then allowed Lando around the outside. And Lando actually had a good start and, gained a place on the first lap, something that was hard to say last year. So wanted to call that. In that same series of corners, Leclerc got on the inside curb, had a little bit of oversteer, broke his front wing end plate off, and kind of had to roll with that for the rest of the race on his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Thankfully, didn't cause any damage to Lewis. It wasn't any fault of Lewis either. That was just a small mistake by Charles of getting a little too happy on the throttle. Yes. It was just...
Which seemed to help, like, Charles. Like, I feel like the whole race, he had better pace than Lewis.
Which we can talk about that now because it was really interesting. Normally, you're losing points of downforce when you do something like that, but it almost looked like the way the front wing was flexing down, it almost looked like it was creating a better seal for the air to get to the underfloor, and it was kind of canceling out any downforce loss that he had.
Well, Bernie Collins, I mean, she's the best,
I love her. She's so good.
She's the best. She was saying, this race is so hard on their front left. And that was the side wing that he broke off. And she's like, maybe there's just less downforce on that tire that's helping him out a little bit, kind of evening things out.
That's a fair call out as well. You can only do so much from side to side on downforce, but something like that, it would allow for a big difference and maybe allow that tire to last a bit longer.
The other part of it too is that I think Lewis is the only driver that gets this benefit of the doubt, but was he managing tires or not? He is legitimately the only person that if he's not on pace with his teammate, especially if he's in front, he may get the benefit of the doubt of managing tires. I don't think that was the case. Let me just say that, but
yeah, I don't think so either because he was like, let Charles through. Like, I'm doing something here, let him through, and it was just I was shocked he said that. They kind of made him out on the on the broadcast, like, oh, he's not letting him through. They're making team orders. But I think Lewis was the one to bring that up.
Well, and I think he's fine to play the team game, especially now, early into the season. But I think there was a little bit of fight back. You definitely heard those radio messages where he's like, when he's close enough, I'll do it. I don't think he was pushing back that hard. He's just like, look, I'm not going to compromise myself to make this happen, but I will, let it happen.
Before we move on from the start too, I think that's the worst start I've seen Verstappen have in years.
He did a
really good job.
Go backwards for once.
He did a really good job of not letting Leclerc through as well. He let those two other people go through and did a really good job of positioning his car and kind of get his tires under him and finish, because he could have easily let Charles go through. And he was really slow off the jump. He's usually known for having the best starts of anybody out there, and really, really slow off the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Not too far after the start, but George and Lando had some really good fighting in the first lap. Lando got around him in turn 1, but then I think it's turn 8, really, really flat out left-hander, and George decided to huck it down the inside. Lando had to comply, otherwise it was going to be a plane crash. But that was some really good racing between them. And then kind of during that same time, Bortoleto spun it at the back, got a little just too happy on the throttle, almost beached it, but was able to get out of the gravel fine. Race kind of normalized for a little bit from there. The start was really eventful, but race started to normalize. Alonso had his brake failure in retirement. Gasly immediately was like, Alonso's brakes are on fire. Half lap later, he's pulling into the pits, but was able to get off the race or get off the racing line and not cause any sort of safety car, virtual safety car, anything like that. And it also became pretty clear pretty quickly that it was going to be a two-stopper with how much deg, and everybody thought that going in, but it was about lap 15 is when that first pit stop sequence really kicked off. Oscar had a good, I would say actually an okay stop, but was able to come out in front of Lance Stroll. Lando was not as lucky and actually came out behind George and Stroll. Stroll was able to be cleared pretty quickly because he's Lance Stroll, but also he was on old tires. And then Lando eventually was able to get by, but Oscar had built a little bit of a gap. Lando wasn't really able to challenge him. There was moments where it was looking like he was maybe going to. And this was the point. It was after the first pit stop sequence where Charles actually kept the front wing that was damaged. That was when the swap actually happened. So it was a little bit later in the race. It was after that first pit stop sequence. They had both come out. Lewis was still in front, but Charles was kind of right on his ass. They eventually swapped. Middle of the race, the shiner was Ollie Behrman. Had like 4 or 5, not 4 or 5, had like 2 or 3 crossover moves into the hairpin, which is so much fun. Especially being the driver to pull off the crossover. It's a lot. It's so satisfying. You essentially, you go down the outside, you get the guy to steam through his brakes, you get the car stopped, turn him on the inside, and it's a crossover. So you go outside to inside.
And they were both just so crisp, so clean. Yeah. It was tough for sure.
I love hearing him talk shit on the radio too.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed that he apologized because that was sick. I want that. I love hearing a little passion from him. That's in my notes too. It might be a good time to talk about it. But Haas looked really good this weekend, especially after looking like a total shitbox last weekend. And Ollie had a hell of a drive. Should have been driver of the day. We can get into that when we talk a little bit about Kimi and why in the world he got voted driver of the day. But
I have theories.
I think, I have theories too, but like, maybe we can go ahead and get into it. So Kimi got voted driver of the day, 20%.
Like 20%, yeah, an absurd number.
Yeah, it was really, really high, and like it did, like to his credit, it did come out after the race that he had significant floor damage the entire race, and so like knowing that after the race, like Toto said, like there was a hole in the floor.
But the voters didn't know that.
Yeah, but no one
the voters didn't know that at all. And like, I think that just like, I think he is turning into a superstar, and like that would be my guess. But LeAnn, I would love to hear why going 8th to 8th.
My theory is Kimi is still shopping around, and Toto put a ton of money on some bots and got him the driver of the day. Like, you're never gonna get a driver of the day anywhere else, Kimi. You gotta stay. Like.
I don't hate that at all. Toto loves that guy too. Like he's been going hard for him. That's a great call.
Yeah, it's bots. That's the only explanation, because Kimi was the most average driver of today.
I mean, he wasn't even really featured that much on the broadcast either.
No,
like, wasn't really going a lot of moves, so that's why it was very interesting. I don't have any crazy theories. I'm not gonna lie.
I just don't agree.
Once the race finished, I passed out immediately because I watched it live. So it was about almost 3 a.m. my time by the time the race finished, which led me to be passing out immediately. Sports are best watched live.
I agree. I think probably the real answer is like he's an 18-year-old Italian superstar that like the country of Italy is like going really hard for, but I could see sketchy Toto doing something like that for sure.
100%. Like, oh, my new favorite driver. Like, we'll get you driver of the day. Don't you worry.
Other call out kind of towards the tail end of the race, the random Yuki front wing damage. Never seen anything like that happen.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It was literally just the aerodynamic load and the dirty air from the car in front. So like the dirty air can maybe cause some higher peak loading, I guess, and is what caused that. But that was a really weird one without there being any sort of contact. And you could hear him on the radio. He was like, front wing damage from what?
Yeah, he just goes, from what? I've done the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
LeAnn, are you a Yuki fan? Mike
Absolutely
and Mike. No, God, I think I'm the only Yuki fan in the world. I love listening to him on the radio. Like he's a psycho, but
Is
I really
he
enjoy
is he
it.
comedic relief? Yes. Do I think he's a good driver? No.
I think he's really good, and we can get into this when we talk about Lawson and the seat. But big Yuki fan, and that sucked to see his race weekend ruined that way. I haven't seen anything like that in a long time. Like you see a lot of that in old F1 videos where like just something breaks on the car, or like even in the previous era where like tires would go. But it seems like the technological advances should eliminate that nowadays, and that's the first time in a couple of years we've really seen like a failure that's non-engine, an aero failure in a race just randomly like that.
So I don't
That's
know
where
if
you need to check the
remember,
security cameras and see if Lawson was actually, in Yuki's garage.
Yeah,
We need to check security cameras.
unscrewing a couple bolts. Couple years ago, Sergio had a moment where his engine cover just kind of blew off the car. And then actually testing this year, Haas had a similar issue, but it's not normally like clear aerodynamic components that break off like that, the way that the front wing did. That's what I thought was especially unique. That was a weird one.
Yeah.
Was that back to the security camera thing? That could have been from Sergio's wife after he cheated on her after the Monaco race. She could have been in the garage messing with that. That's what you get.
Yeah, also true. All valid theories, yeah.
Really makes you think.
We'll finish out not too much. It was really a snooze fest to the end. Had another, set of pit stops where nothing really happened. Leclerc was able to manage his tires better. Ended up getting by Verstappen at the very tail end of the race. Lando
mattered.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go next, right after calling out Lando having an almost brake failure leading to the end. That was some nervous watching. Watching an 8-second gap go down to 1.3 across the line was a little nail biting. And he called it out too in the post race interview. He was like, the brakes really could have went at any time. They were getting worse and worse, and we were lucky to finish. So, for him and his championship hopes, it was good to see him be able to still bring that home in P2. And it was right when he finally looked like he was going to try and make a charge to Piastri was when that really happened. But great day for McLaren, obviously. 1-2 finish. Can't ask for much better. Oscar deserved the win. Now we got to talk about
if they don't finish 1-2, I think it's a loss on McLaren. Like, I think their car is fast enough that if they're not on 1-2 every race, then I think it's their own fault.
Yeah, there's a point where it's a little bit of execution, and they've got the drivers to do it too. Unlike unfortunately, my guy Liam Lawson in the second Red Bull seat. Like even if they had the best car, it doesn't look like he'd be doing much right now. But double Ferrari DQ, so was really unfortunate. Charles went really, really long on his set of tires and was missing a front wing end plate. Therefore, he was underweight.
Now, they do get to add the wing plate back.
So they did? Were they able to find it and actually, or
did.
just like?
I think they get to put on a new wing.
Yep, they put on a new wing.
But
about 40 kilos is the tires, and because he had run so long on those tires, the thought process was that he had done, that, or it was an execution error, and it was a little bit of Ferrari miscalculation of, loads and all the different fluids that were going to be consumed during the race. So
I feel like this was the George disqualification 2.0 last year of just
where it was worse because George won the race. George won the race too, which was even more unfortunate, right? And then Hamilton had his skid plate too low. You get a certain amount of wear allowed. And that's another thing where that's probably setup related, where I don't know whether they changed their car in between sprint and quali, but whatever they did, whether it was riding him curbs too much, he got DQ'd for that. And Ferrari really needed those points after the start in Australia. So that was really unfortunate. I know I'm sure it hit home as a Ferrari fan, but
nothing new, but it still hurts.
The other thing is too is a lot of times the teams will throw a fit and go and protest their asses off, but it's like these were two clear-cut violations where it's like there is no recourse. It's like you had a skid plate that was too small, you had a car that was too light. Sorry, guys. So.
Yeah. And how much of that is like Lewis said, I want this car lower. That feels like better to me on this track. Like how much of that is the engineers get to pick that versus the driver feels better with that lower car? I would think that it's a
The
combo.
driver's always going to want the fastest car they can, but that's where the engineer has to step in and be like, "Hey, actually, we think if we make that step, it's going to lead to the skid plate wearing out too much, and it could be a problem." So that's where it's like, if there was no regulations, the drivers would all set it up, in a pretty similar way. But it's like they're being guided by the team to say, okay, no, we need to hold off on a little bit of those, few points of downforce to make sure we're not having to deal with that later in the race.
Yeah.
Definitely a feedback loop because of the double Ferrari DQ though, double Haas points finish. Don't think anybody would have predicted that after testing and after the first race of the year. So
absolutely not.
And that takes us through the China Sprint weekend.
Hell yeah.
Really eventful.
So a couple things. Well, actually, one thing I want to talk about. Did y'all catch LeAnn Lawson's post-race interview?
Yep.
I did not.
He was, Nick, you got to go back and watch that. He was despondent. Like, he's a relatively well-spoken dude. And he said probably 40 times in that interview. And he also said, like, at the end of the day, it's just not good enough, probably 10 times. And, like, very short sentences, like very clearly, like, really, really broken up, like, maybe trying to hold back tears. Like, the dude was absolutely despondent. It was a tough watch. Like, really wanted to fast forward through it, but I'm a big LeAnn Lawson fan. Like, I think that he's talented and he's stuck in a tough position in a car that's not really good. And it was really hard to watch. Like, I really hope that he gets more shots. And, like, I think Red Bull too, like, I think that if they put more drivers in that car, I don't really know if anything's going to change. I don't want to spoil my hot takes for the later segment that we're going to do, but I really don't think that LeAnn Lawson is as bad as he's looking right now. And he's lost. Like, that interview, he was just talking about, like, yeah, I don't really know what happened. And it was tough. It was tough to watch. Like, if anyone listening or Nick, like, you need to go watch that interview and see what that was about, because that's a broken man that was on that interview.
Yeah, I just saw a little clip of it, so I didn't see the whole thing where he was struggling that much. They just kind of cut it down to the one sentence that it sounds like he repeated a few dozen times.
Mm-hmm. It's that Red Bull second seat. Yeah, face of the fallen.
It's the poison chalice of F1.
Mm-hmm.
And, I found LeAnn Lawson because he wrecked Alex Albon when Alex Albon went to be his teammate in this series called DTM. And so it's like I found him because he was super fast and was also impressed with his, like, charisma and, like, the way he carries himself and all that shit. So this is probably what's surprising me the most. I hope he's able to see the other side of it, but it's just like it's been such a bad start. Like, with as much flack as we gave Sergio and Sergio got last year, the flack coming his way is a little bit deserving so when you're qualifying P20 in every qualifying session you've been involved in. Didn't do that bad in the race in Australia, kind of like unfortunate circumstances, and ended up having a rookie spin, but it's like he didn't do that bad outside of the qualifying, but this race weekend got worse. So I'm still pulling for him. The rumor is him and Yuki are swapping seats, or he's losing a seat entirely. We'll see. I think Red Bull wasn't overly and obviously they didn't love what they saw from Hadjar in terms of his maturity level. They're liking what he's seeing from a speed level. So they also don't see Yuki as a long-term solution. Otherwise, they would have already put him in the seat. They've mismanaged that second seat for 10 years since Max Verstappen showed up. Pretty much since Danny Rick left, it's been a shit show. It's been constantly, no one can get close to Max. Danny Rick is the only person who even got remotely close in a Red Bull. So,
yeah, and after the race, Christian Horner got asked the same question he's been asked like 30 times, like, hey, do you set up the car for Max? And he gave the most transparent answer I think I've heard him give in a long time. He was talking about how Max likes so much front end on his car, and because of that, like, it makes the rear really squirrely. And that's just, Max is the only guy, like we were talking about the Ghost video last week where Max is like flying into the corners, braking super hard. Like, there's not really anybody that has that driving style, and Liam Lawson's kind of one of those guys. Like he drives like that.
Yeah.
He drove like that in the RB last year, and if he can't handle it, like I think he's really talented. I think he will have a future regardless of what he does in racing. You know, if he doesn't get through F1, like he's going to be awesome in WEC or like whatever he does next. But I just don't know if anybody can drive that car efficiently. And as much as I would love to see Yuki in the seat, I think he deserves it. I don't really think that's going to be an improvement. So I hope they stick with him and like just trust that like this is a really different car, and he has had limited time in the car to get really familiar with it.
Well,
it might
Max
be
is
the
a
best thing for
robot.
his
I mean, he
career.
is.
Yes.
Max is a robot, and they have built this car to be driven by an emotionless robot, and they get these other people in there and they can't do it.
Yeah.
I think they've built this car around Max, and it's so hard for anyone to step in and drive that car.
As unfortunate as it would be, Pierre Gasly got swapped with Alex Albon mid-season back in the day, and that probably is what saved Pierre Gasly's career. So it's like I'm hoping Liam can maybe have the same long-term arc where he goes down to RB, Yuki goes up and struggles, and then he's able to like easily wreck, Hadjar if that ends up being the case. It's like that's probably the best. Like unless something crazy happens and he flips a switch and somehow figures out how to drive that Red Bull. As hard as it would be to deal with a driver swap, that'd probably be the best thing for his.
Well, here's the
career
thing: if you're Yuki,
right
do you want to go to that Red Bull seat? At this point, I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Nah, I'm good, man." Like, I
but
think
you
you're
don't
doing
get to
really
say
good.
no. That's the
Yeah.
that's the thing. Yeah, you don't get to say no.
Y'all, he wants to go in the Red Bull seat. Suzuka is the next race. He wants to be in that seat for that race 100%. He knows the track. He loves the track. If any time is good for him to get into it, it's next week. And same for Lawson. It's a very technical track that doesn't require like a ton of hard braking. There's a lot of like mid-speed corners, and that'll be really fun to see him in it. But yeah, that's a tough situation. And I mean, my feel is that no matter what driver gets in that seat this year, I don't think they're going to have success. And I don't mean like I don't think they're going to be close to Max. I mean like I think they're going to be lower to bottom of the field. And I think that's a good transition into our hot takes segment. I'll keep it rolling. We're trying something a little fun. It's early in the season. LeAnn says she's the keeper of the hot takes, so we wanted to fire this up here. And I'll go ahead and start. So what we're going to do here is basically we each have a hot take / early season prediction we want to throw out there. We may have multiple. I just have one. Mine is that the Red Bull is a lower mid-tier car that Max is absolutely dragging to a great performance every week. I legitimately think that they are below Williams. I think that they're around the same Haas and Kick Sauber kind of tier of car. It is definitely one of the most difficult cars to drive. Whether it's got real fast potential, I don't really know because Max is so insane. Like I think he would drive any car to have performance, but my hot take is that like I think they're legitimately like seventh best car to drive in the field. And yeah, I've expounded on it a ton. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but like I just don't think any driver is going to be able to bring that to good performance other than Max.
Agree.
Nick, I would love to hear your take on this because as the resident technical expert, I would love to hear your feedback. That's a purely
they feel like
take.
the back of the top four to me. They don't feel like they're all the way in the midfield, but it definitely feels like on the whole, you've got McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes all consistently, better than them. So Max is what is making that gap, and Liam having a slightly off weekend is what is making him fall to 15th, 16th, 17th. So I don't think they're all the way in the doldrums, but it'll be interesting to see how the season goes. One, they've lost Adrian Newey, as we've talked about many a times, and they're in that point of, okay, like, we see we don't have that great of a car. Do we just say fuck it and go all in for 26, and then they're not developing their car at all for the rest of the year? Like it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. All the other teams are in the same position, but Red Bull being in a little bit tougher one, having one driver right now that can really drive their car, and coming to the realization they're not really going to be competing for a championship if Max is finishing, 4th and 5th.
Real quick, round table, just one word answer. Haas, excuse me, Williams or Red Bull? Which would you rather drive?
Williams.
Red Bull.
Red Bull.
This
Williams,
season, like, yeah, Williams.
Williams or Aston Martin?
Aston.
Aston.
Williams or Racing Bulls?
Racing Bulls.
Racing Bulls. I'm
Red-
sorry, I just passed on the fucking Williams every time.
Man, yeah, I think Williams is going to be sneaky this year. I think they'll finish top 5. That might be another hot take for me, but
My only warning sign is like Sainz is traditionally a guy that's able to hop in a new team and perform, and he's struggled a bit. And so, don't know where that's coming from, right? But it's like, that's my only thing of like, maybe Albon's showing like, hey, I'm actually a bit of a G, and I've been here, and I know this car really well. So that's what's giving me my hesitancy. Every other move he's made, so he's gone through all the big teams other than Mercedes at this point. He's hopped in the car and is right there immediately. So that's where that's coming from. And like, I think Albon, and I think he's going to get there eventually, but it tells me that's a little bit of a tricky car to drive as well.
There's some theory that Alex Albon was the most similar to Max in the driving style in the Red Bull. And so I'm wondering if you're seeing a little bit of that snappy car setup that they've kind of built around Albon that now Sainz is having to step into a little bit.
Well, the thing is with Albon, as I kind of called it out, is like, this is the first teammate he's had since Max Verstappen. Like he had Nicholas Latifi, then he had Logan Sargent, and then he had Stepan Colapinto. So It's like that's a bunch of nobodies, but it's like, I think that this was my litmus test for him, is that if Sainz, like, if he was just kind of a mid-tier driver and like was just being painted in a better light because his teammates were so bad, I felt like that was going to become very evident because Sainz is good hopping into new teams, but also because Albon hasn't really been tested. It feels like Albon kind of has woken up the bull of like, all right, I got a real teammate I got to lock in against. I'm not just going to go 24-0 in qualifying and in the race, for the season without, even rolling over in my bed.
Yeah.
okay. Next hot take, LeAnn or Nick, fire it up.
I'll go because mine's not that hot of a take. But I think.
What are we doing here? We're here for hot
So-
takes, not Luke.
Yeah.
Takes.
But this is against my
Nick.
own team. I think that Lando and Piastri are gonna wreck each other out at some point this year. They've kept it immensely clean up to this point. They've been very cooperative, but you can feel that struggle for power currently happening where like I think it's gonna come to blows. I hope it doesn't end up being a catastrophic event where both end up DNFing or anything like that, but it feels like one, if not both of them, are gonna end up retiring from a race from a collision with their teammate.
100%. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's why I said it's not that hot of a take, but it's a little bit of a hot take coming from a McLaren fan putting that juju out there. You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
that's
I don't
fair.
want that to happen, but it just kind of like it feels like it's like on the horizon.
If they crash,
next
it's your
race,
fault, Nick.
if next race like Oscar and Lando are fighting their asses off and crash out, it's like I can't say I'm surprised. You know?
Yeah.
I think your guy is going to cause it too. I think Lando is going to be the one that causes it, doing something frantic. Because I don't think we talked enough about how good of a drive Oscar had this weekend. And LeAnn, I want to flip it over to you for a question. We talked about this last year. In 5 years, who do you think will be seen as the better driver, Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris?
Oscar Piastri. I already think he's being looked at as a better driver this year. Like, not a doubt in my mind, it's Piastri. He is the coolest, calmest, collectedest mofo I've ever seen. Like, he gets out of the car after winning a race and it's just like, good job, y'all. Like, that was really great. Good for us. And it's like, this dude is unbreakable. And Lando Norris, I think, will get in his own head so hard. And Oscar will just drive the car.
I think so too. He is definitely Captain Cool. He seems like it's just another day at the office for him. I will say Lando has seemed a lot more chill on team radio this year and a lot more business focused this year. So that's good to see.
And I'm backing my guy. I think it's Lando. But the difference between me and a lot of fans is like I still support Oscar. It's not like I was pissed seeing Oscar win the race and Lando not being able to challenge. It's like, yes, I want Lando to be able to challenge, but I'm not sitting there pissed off because Lando wasn't able to win the race. Like I'm still a McLaren fan. Like I am a Lando fan and a McLaren fan. Like I'm not necessarily like in the Piastri camp, but I'm not by any means ever rooting against him, or anything like that. So that's
Well,
kind
it's
of
so
like
easy to root for Oscar because he feels like this underdog, and Lando Norris is like the, destined to win the World Drivers' Championship. And so, yeah, Oscar has a little bit of that underdog behind him. But I mean, I think if Lando loses the World Drivers' Championship, it's its own fault.
I think that right now that McLaren has the strongest driver lineup. Like there's an argument for Ferrari. Um, there's maybe an argument for Williams. They have a really strong lineup as well. But it's like in terms of right now, it really does feel like they have the two fastest guys going head to head. The only person you could replace either one of those guys with, I think, right now is a Leclerc or like a Verstappen to be like that's the only kind of guys you could bring into the team that would possibly be an improvement in either seat.
Yeah, totally
It's
agree.
funny. It's funny you say that Oscar is easy to pull for, LeAnn. I find it really hard to pull for Oscar, and not because like I don't think he's a talented driver, but he's just like white bread with mayo, like
I need
untoasted.
Yeah,
some
he's
charisma.
never
I
gonna
will
rile a
say,
crowd for sure.
yeah.
Ever.
He doesn't season his food. He's just a baked potato with like maybe some
Little
sour
salt.
cream. Yeah, maybe. I mean, salt's.
But for
it's
sure, no green onions. Yeah.
definitely not. No bacon. No cheddar cheese.
He's mushy
nothing like that.
peas.
Yeah,
Mushy peas.
yeah, he's fine. And Lando is like probably the most charismatic guy on the entire grid, other than maybe Albon. But both of them are really fucking talented, and it's
Yeah.
going to be fun to see this race. Nick, I do think that at some point they are going to wreck each other.
Yeah.
All right, LeAnn, let's hear it.
Okay. The hottest one I have, Kimmy is gonna be George this season.
Whoa,
Ooh.
that is. Can I hear more on that? Because I don't disagree.
So I think we give Kimmy the first 5-6 races. Let him do some F1. Let him drive the car. Let him see what it feels like to be in an F1 race. And then I think he's gonna say, "Oh, I can do this. This is so easy." And then he's just gonna be like, "Step aside, George. Like I can do this in my sleep." And George will try so hard to hold on to that number one driver. I'm the elder here. George is going to, in his Englishman style, going to try so hard to fall with grace. And Kimmy is just going to step right over him.
I love that. I'm a big Kimi fan. I've been calling for him in the Mercedes seat for a while before he got it. Speaking of George, did you see his attempt to rile up the crowd this past weekend? He was like he's on the podium like doing his interview, and he tried to do the Lewis Hamilton thing with like, yeah, it's just great to be around these fans, and like nobody said anything.
Oh, no.
He's
Don't
so
do that.
corny, man. He's so corny.
Yes.
I'm like it's funny. I didn't really have this thought until just now, but I'm hearing some parallels, and also with Kimi being the closest equivalent to a Max-esque driver of a very coveted guy, and then you've
Yep.
got a guy who recently kind of got control of the team, aka Daniel Ricciardo, who is now George Russell. Danny ran, okay. Danny ran instead of just being willing to be like, I think without a doubt, if Daniel Ricciardo could turn the clock back to 2018, he'd be like, all right, Dan, just commit to being the second driver. It's really gonna work out better for you in the long term. And so I wonder if there's a lesson to be learned there from George, and that like, hey, you might have a young and up and coming teammate that is an absolute phenom, and maybe it's better to just not run. And so I think it'll be interesting to see those parallels and how that kind of plays out. But it feels like a similar situation where it's just like it was evident very quickly that Max was going to be a force in F1. He wasn't immediately able to show up and kill Danny Rick, but then that second or third season, you could tell like, oh, the tides are changing, and this is turning into Max's team and no longer Danny Rick's team, and he wasn't able to take that second driver role. But as we now see, like it would have been the better call for his career.
Totally. And credit to George. I mean, these first few races, he has just been in the right spot at the right time and just taking a podium. Like, I don't know that he's done anything special other than just, bet the house on that one stop this past race. But I mean, I think George is just trying to play it cool, and I think Kimmy's not going to play it cool much longer.
I think George is not going to run from it. I think like it was pretty plain last year that like he's willing to take big risks, whether that's a benefit to him or a detriment. Like he's gonna send it, and it will be. I think Kimmy is really cool, and I think that George is going to have to make the mistakes. So Kimmy is going to put some pressure on him, and we'll see if George bends. I think he will, probably. I love that. That's a great hot take. We'll have to check in on that later in the season.
Yeah, heard it here first. My second hot take is Yuki and Lawson are switching after 5 races if it keeps going like this, maybe less.
It almost sounds like next race was the rumors, and apparently there's supposed to be a decision coming here shortly.
Yeah, because they have 2 weeks to make that decision.
Yeah. It also makes sense from a commercial perspective, like you were talking, Trav, putting Yuki in the top team in being able to make all those sponsor appearances in Japan. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, I think at this point, same kind of thing in terms of career. It might be the best thing possible for Liam Lawson's career to make that switch, let Yuki go struggle as well, and then he's able to, rebuild some confidence and actually start performing well again down in the Racing Bulls.
Absolutely. Anybody else got any other hot takes before we move on? Okay, cool. I think we're gonna get to news and notes. This is off book here, but y'all, V10s are being discussed like very seriously right now. Nick, I know we talked about this after the podcast last time, but it's not looking like 2026, but they're
well, it can't be. It can't be 26.
No,
because
they
that engine reg is like already they agreed on that
built.
all the way back in 2020 is when I think they set the current engine regs that there's about to hit next year. So it'd have to be a next cycle thing, but
it would. But yeah, it sounds like the other MBS Ben Salam is really hearing drivers talking a little bit more about the V10s. Obviously, like if you watch the sport, like, and you watch YouTube from, the V10 era, like it's just different. Like the Raptor scream is intoxicating, and the cars don't sound really good right now. Like they're fast and it's fun, but like they don't sound as good as they could. And the big thing that's up in the air right now, like F1 went really hard on hybrid technology, and hybrid technology was really big for like green initiatives and things like that with the auto manufacturers, but F1 at its core, their mission statement is that they are the highest performance, best race cars out there. And that's not really, I mean, listen, they're the fastest, but like they're definitely taking some steps back in some certain areas. So I know that there are a lot of drivers talking about it, and what they're talking about as an alternative is running V10s on sustainable fuel, like fully sustainable fuel. So just something to keep an eye on, like as a race fan and like just a lover of loud noise, like that would be amazing for the sport. It would be great to have those back in the cars, and that's been popping up here and there. So watch this space. Your preeminent V10 news podcast here.
Hold please.
Yeah.
Please. I've got something for you. Live from the Silverstone Grand Prix. I have a recording of some V10s, and it is amazing.
We'll cut this out. This is good radio here.
Let me know if you guys can hear this.
I mean, it's beautiful.
You can also
Just
hear me.
screams at you.
You can hear me at the end. I'm just like, oh my god. That's the thing. It's like it's a visceral reaction. That's what you don't get from, like, I don't sit there and watch the videos of the F1 cars of today that going around and have that same reaction. It's like, oh, there's Lando. Oh, that's the McLaren. I'm not going like, just like, oh my god, do you hear that thing?
Well, when we went to the race last year, I mean, we pocketed probably 5 pairs of headphones each. Like, we were like putting them in our ears before we even got up there. And you get to your seat and you're like, you take your earplugs out and you're like, oh, like this, it doesn't sound like anything. Like,
F3
I don't
was
need
the loudest. out of the support race, I don't know how many support races there were in Mexico, but F3 was by far the loudest car because we had
100%.
F3, F2, and F1 the weekend that I went
Mm-hmm.
to. F3s were deafening. It didn't sound that great because they're only, I think they're 4 cylinders, but those things screamed.
Yeah.
Then the F1 cars, you're like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, and like
doesn't hurt my ears.
when you go to like I go to Indy races and NASCAR races, and like that's deafening. Like it's like you
Yeah.
feel it, you feel it, and the only visceral reaction you have to F1 cars nowadays is like when they're under safety car and they're kind of sputtering. Like it's more of like a ugh, like I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
So I hope it comes back. Really excited that that's even being talked about. Like it's probably 6 years off, but like that's the most exciting development in the sport for me right now is the V10s possibly coming back.
I'm really excited for the next Rega cars because they're making them smaller, making them more nimble, lighter, as well as the sustainable fuel side. I think is the technology from these Formula One teams that are really going to trickle down into road cars and make an impact on the cars that we continue to drive for the next 20, 30 years. So I'm really excited for that aspect. But like from a pure motorsport lover and just like, yeah, give me the V10s. Give it, inject it into my soul, please.
No doubt about it. Couple more things. Rest in peace, Eddie Jordan. Eddie Jordan, truly one of the greatest privateers in F1 history. Like true, like racing pirate. NASCAR had the Moonshiners. F1 had Eddie Jordan. Famously gave Michael Schumacher his first shot. I don't want to do it injustice, so Nick would love a little blurb on Eddie Jordan and what he brought to the
Yeah, so super interesting story, but he's a self-funded, self-made guy. Decided to build his own Formula One team, and ran it owner operator. Never drove in his own Formula One team, but ran it for somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years. It's now the Aston Martin team. It has lived on, and it is still a Formula One organization. But then he also went on to be a mentor and a agent for a lot of drivers, and helped a lot of young guys get to where they are in the sport. So, as well as it just like you hear bad stuff in the paddock around Helmut Marko, around a lot of other guys that, around a Flavio Briatore. You don't hear any of that stuff about like Eddie Jordan. He's a dude that like did it by the book, but also like went out of his way to help the young guys after his time had passed. And yeah, was always interesting to get his perspective on the broadcast whenever they would tap on him. Sad to see, a figure of the sport be lost.
No doubt. He was really also like great, just like vibe to him too, like the style.
Huge personality.
Like, yeah, the personality, the glasses, the haircut, just like just good stuff. And he will be missed. I always loved when he popped in on like pre-race broadcasts and stuff, and had some stuff to say. So last thing we got today. One of the biggest downfalls of F1 is that they don't talk about financials enough. Like genuinely, like that's not a joke. Like it's one of the richest sports in the world. Monaco has those like 120-foot yachts out there, and you just don't hear a ton about how drivers and teams are paid. So, little surprise for y'all. I don't know, Nick. I think you probably know this. LeAnn, do you know how the Constructors Championship is paid out every year?
Like in cash, US dollar, gold coin?
No, but do you know like how like at the end of the year, once the season is finished, how the money that is distributed is allocated to the teams?
No.
Okay, cool. So I saw this. Shout out to the race. They had a video that came out pretty recently that kind of went through some of the F1 financials. I thought it was super interesting. I didn't know much about it, so hopefully, if you're listening, you can learn too. So,
Let's hear it.
50% of all revenue generated by F1 is distributed to the teams. So in 2023, that was around $1 billion of revenue. I think probably like the assumption, if you don't know, like if you haven't dug into it, is like, yeah, it's just paid out by like the top teams. And they talk about that a lot. Like, the higher you're standing in F1, the more you get paid out. But there's actually a little bit more to it that I didn't know. So,
And that's equal across all teams, or is this where they're going into the things?
Exactly. So what I did know is that based on your standings, you got a higher percentage of payout, and then basically the lower you get in the standings, the more development time you get to the car, so they can even it out. And Something I was looking at in my research, like F1 has not always been like this. Like you'll hear some of the nepotism that's involved in the pricing still, but F1 as it is right now is the most equitable that it's ever been, and like maybe like non-monopolistic. I don't know if that's even a word, but so first of all, 5% of all payouts every single year go to Ferrari as a legacy payment to Ferrari. Just doing some quick math, not the biggest math guy, but based on that $1 billion, they just get $50 million a year for being Ferrari.
And
Makes sense to me.
It's the
Yeah,
legacy
sounds good.
stuff that you were talking about. The only team to have ever competed in every year of Formula One. So that's why they get that. It was during the last big Concord agreement. They were able to kind of sneak that one in. And they're like, all right, if you guys want the ability to add new teams, we want a 5% F1 fee. That's called the red fee.
It's the most Ferrari thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's amazing. If they're not going to make it up,
They
on the
threatened
track,
to leave too.
Yeah, they got to get it from somewhere.
So Ferrari got to a point where they were threatening to leave the sport, and this was one of their things, saying like, we're going to leave unless you're willing to give us 5% of the payout every year.
Yeah,
now
so
it's all
that's a
going
big
to Lewis
one.
Hamilton.
Absolutely,
Straight to Lewis Hamilton.
straight to his bank account, and
Yeah.
I'm sure the F40 that he got as a part of it. The other part of that is that Ferrari is the only team with veto power when like widespread across the book. If they don't like something, they can shut it down for the rest of the teams in the Concord Agreement, which is amazing. Straight up. Yeah.
Oh, that I did not know.
That's the power that Enzo had.
Yep.
Right there.
That's been around
Enzo
for a long
Ferrari
time.
living on to this day. Same type of shit. He was threatening to leave, and they go, well, Formula One's nothing without Ferrari. All right, Enzo, here's your veto, Mr. President.
Yeah,
And
so
their
that's
merch is still shit. What the hell?
just, you gotta love it. Never quit Marinella. So the other part that I didn't know is that 25% of the payout of that 50% of all the revenue that F1 makes, 25% of that is distributed to teams who have won or have been in the top 3 in the past 10 years. So right now, currently, that the in order that is Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, and Williams. So those teams get a payout based on their top 3 and their winning finishes. I don't know the exact percentages, but winning is a little bit more, and then getting top 3 in the constructors, they get paid out a certain percent. And then the rest of it is where it goes to the actual finishing positions for the year. So it starts out at like 14% at the very top and whittles down to like 8% at the bottom of the grid. So just thought that was super cool. Like I know that it's really like when like McLaren recently locked in Lando and Oscar, no information on like what they're actually being paid, and it's really frustrating to hear that because like I would just love to know what they're getting paid. But shout out to the race for digging that stuff up. I thought that was super cool.
It's awesome.
Alrighty. Well, LeAnn, thank you for being the first ever guest on the Outlap podcast.
It's an
I think
honor.
I think it went swimmingly.
Agreed.
It's always great to have, more folks that, and you obviously know what you're talking about. It's not like you're out here like, what is F1? No, you're in the right place. And
the
and
drama
it was a
really
pleasure
pulls you
having
in, I tell you.
You undersold it too. You said you were in it for the drama. You know the racing too. So I'm
Yes,
glad
you do.
that absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Happy to be on. Happy to be back anytime. Yeah. If Mike ever shits the bed, happy to step in.
Well, there may be room for a fourth as well. We can. It's not like it's limited to 3. We can get more in here, and could make for some creative formats and stuff like that as well.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'll be here for the hot takes anytime.
Cool. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Appreciate your time, and that's another episode of the Outlap Podcast.